watching, when you go out to the body of water that you're fishing, let's say it's a 6 to 8 hour day, guys, I'm going to share with you a plan of action that's helped me to become a better angler, so maybe it can possibly help you as well, as I believe it will. It's called the 50-30-20 method. The 50-30-20 method kind of relies around fishing history, fishing new water, and then using your electronics. And then I'm going to share at the end of the video during the video, how I've actually tweaked it lately and changed it up what I've been doing in the last year. So guys, before we get into the 50-30-20 method, just like to share with you guys that I do also offer on the water lesson, on the water electronic trips, and then guide trips as well. I guide down here in the Southwest Arkansas region, and I also will do the electronic trips anywhere in Arkansas and possibly meet people out of the state, as I've done as well. So guys, if you're interested in an on the water lesson, electronic trip, guided trip, check out my Jimmy Easterling Fishing Facebook page. It will be in the link below. One trip I know I've also offered is live scope only trips. If you want to get better at using the live scope, we can meet up at any lake, or you can come down here to one of my lakes like this one right here behind me that has some big fish in it. Great place to practice using the live scope. So guys, let's talk about the 50-30-20 method. So I had some audio issues, and so about to just re-record this part of it, but I like that intro, got the lake in the background. And guys, thank you for tuning in to the Fishing Coach channel. Another re-intro. So guys, with the 50-30-20 method, it revolves kind of around 3 parts of a fishing day potentially. You have your time fishing, but you have your time fishing history, fishing new water, and then using your electronics, okay? Now this method can be depending on how many hours, of course, you have in a day. Let's say we're talking about a 6 to 8 hour fishing day. How are you using your time? And I know as a lot of anglers, you might not have much time of the week to fish. It might be once a weekend, or it could be 1 day a week, 2 days a week. And of course, more time on the water, the better. That's just is what it is. But for me as an angler, there was a time when I was fishing, like say Lake Ouachita, growing up. A lot of it was new, one section of the lake. But as I started finding out these areas fish were at, then I would take fishing trips and just fish those areas. And then I wouldn't catch fish at those areas, or I would. And then after about maybe about a season, I was like, hey, I'm fishing the same stuff. I'm not learning the rest of the lake or the rest of this section of the lake. And it happened at other lakes for me as well. Then when I moved south and got to fish new bodies of water, of course I had to learn. But then it got to where there were fishing trips after I'd figure out, like a Millwood, for example, there would be times I would just fish the same stuff. And then I was like, hey, I need to continue to fish new water, okay? So guys, I'm gonna share with you the original 50-30-20 method, just kind of the idea, right? And then how I've tweaked it lately, and then how you can, for you as well. Each one of y'all can do whatever you want with it, but this could be for the beginning angler, advanced angler, but just to have an idea when you go out on your body of water, okay? So for the 50-30-20, I probably should have told you guys right off the bat. 50% originally was to fish new water, okay? And my whole thought with that is on fishing new water is when you have a small lake, if you fish new water every time you go out, you're going to eventually maybe fish the whole lake. And when you do fish new water, there might be a brush pile, could be a stump, a little thing off a point, dock, whatever, that you might not catch a fish at, but it's in your mind. They're like, hey, there's a time that fish could be there. It could be, you could fish this new area or this new spotting area in the summer, but you're like, hey, they have to spawn there in the spring, or they could, and then you keep it in your mind, mark it to where you go back there in the spring. So now if it's a big lake, like a giant lake, over time you're going to get to be able to be more familiar with it. Some of these big lakes that are 40, 60, 70, 80,000 acre lakes, guys, it's hard to fish everywhere. But every time you do go out and try new water, you learn more about the lake or that area of the lake, okay? A lot of lakes I fish are typically anywhere between I fish some smaller ones. I love fishing small lakes. But those bigger sized lakes are anywhere from 8,000 to 44. Ouachita is 44,000 surface acres or whatever it is. I don't know the word. But it has a lot of miles of shoreline. Ouachita is thousands of miles of shoreline. I forgot the exact. But there's a lot of parts in that lake to where fish just don't get fished as much. So that lake's kind of unique. So your lake, I don't know where you guys are at, but Tennessee River, giant, but it doesn't have as much miles of shoreline. Down there in Florida, Okeechobee, giant. It's just a big flat, right? So just to keep that in mind on fishing new bodies of water. Now that 20% was history. Now guys, if 4 hour fishing trip and you have a buddy, go fish your history. Or if you have been fishing for 30 plus years on these lakes, you probably know enough about them. But it's always good to expand, try, and grow, and you will figure stuff out, definitely with live scope. A lot of guys down here where I'm at that are really good fishermen, that live scope's opened the doors up to other areas for them, and they've figured out, learned more about the lakes, because we're targeting fish you've never targeted before. So history, I try to keep it down, and I think it's made me a better angler when I started thinking about this over the years and fishing less history and then fishing the moment, as it's called. I became a better angler. And then now, even when I go back to Hot Springs and I'm about to fish these lakes, my history's gone. I'm just going to drop the boat in and go. And there's going to be times, I'm like, hey, I remember catching a fish here or here, but I'm going to go fish the moment. Those guys that are really, really good, Jacob Wheeler, for example, fishes the moment, okay? He's put all of his stuff out there. Guys, there's an MLF Derby he's talked about where he fished one of his best spots at Chick that not many people knew about, and he had to do it because money's on the line. Watch Jacob, they go fish it, but guess what? Jacob went and found new stuff, and he didn't find it by fishing the same things over and over. He knows how to find new areas during a tournament and before a tournament, okay? Fishing the moment. So new anglers, don't get stuck on fishing history, okay? Do not. But like I said, if you've been fishing for 30, 40 years, you know enough about the bodies of water, then you know where to fish the history and at and when, okay? But it's okay to go out and still learn, right? And still try to figure out other little things, because fish change. That 30%, guys, was electronics. And that electronics means seat time. Literally idling in your boat using down, scan, 2D sonar, side imaging, live scope, okay? Using your electronics. Originally, like Johnny, when I got into this, and I've guys talked to Johnny for a while, Johnny was going to where like half of his day was electronics. And I thought he was crazy. But now, guys, I don't think he's crazy, okay? I do that. Like, even one of my last trips at Lake de Grey, if you've watched the video, I put it on the end screen. When I was at Lake de Grey, guys, I spent more time graphing and using my electronics than fishing that day. And that, it was about last fall, about last October, when, I decided, hey, I'm going to get a lot better at this. So that meant seat time. So there are times, guys, where I sat on the boat for 6 hours. And those guys that are really, really good spend a lot of time there. Now, if you do not have all the electronics, that's okay. Okay, I get it, all right? But if you have one unit, I got one unit, use it. Practice using it. You only get better by sitting behind it, idling, looking, changing your settings a little bit, trying to determine what stuff is. You can go back and fish it, but just don't fish it too long. So for me lately, guys, how it has changed, as I just mentioned, I'm right now probably graphing 50% of the time now, but the graphing in new water kind of goes together, okay? The electronics can maybe mix with your history too, right? I mean, I got lakes down here to where, I got to go check some stuff out sometimes. If there's nobody in the area, there's no boats around, Anyway, so, guys, so the graphing and electronics all goes together, okay? So, but me, how I became a better angler. Now, I know this too. I have a lot more time on the water than I used to, guys. And I know you as a angler that might fish on the weekend or once a week, you're like, Jimmy, I want to fish more than graph. But guys, just give it a shot, okay? It don't got to be 4 hours. It could just be an hour of the day, 2 hours, and then you over time grow with it. Some of my other, there's one kid right now that I coached. He's not a kid anymore, but he's kind of became a firm believer in this as well, and he has started implementing it and sees the power. Now, guys, if you have live scope, it does help. But I'm not talking about just, Johnny did this and other pros, KVD, those guys did this before live scope, and it's still possible. For me also, it's relaxing. It calms me down. It don't get my nerves going. So that's how I have changed since last fall. And I just was like, hey, I'm going to do it. Now, there are times in lakes where you don't, like, a shallow river type reservoir. Yeah, guys, you might not graph as much, okay? But if you're lowland impoundment, highland impoundment, guys, the seat time can help you out in a fishing day. So, guys, with all this in mind, other question I get, like, hey, if you get a new area, what are you looking for? I guess, guys, when I go to a new area, that's a great question. When I go to a new area, looking at it on a map, first thing you got to look for is the creek channel, main river channel, whatever that is. Kind of see how it lays out in there, okay? But as lately, even okay, I'm going to get to lately. But with the creek channel, you kind of can find some of the highway spots. You can find some spots that creek channel bends by. It can be a channel swing bank, could be a point, could be a flat, hump, whatever. And those are going to be high percentage spots, okay? But with high percentage spots nowadays, guys, with all much information on YouTube and how fishing's grown, they're easy to pinpoint. People fish them a lot, so those fish get pressured, okay? But now, as I've learned, fish might not always be around those, okay? The channel guys can be bending this way on a hump. If there's a flat over here, they could be over here, okay? With live scope, seeing them, okay, that's kind of changed too. But guys, remember the rule of thumb. Let's say you're fishing in a new area. I like to look at the creek channel, just see how it bends and goes. When I get into the area or studying Google Earth, look for the cover. Rock, is it timber? Is it, if you can see Google Earth, the low image is a real sandy bottom. But when you get in there with your eyes, try to determine the cover the fish are going to use, okay? And it could be brush piles, rock, timber, grass, lily pads, whatever it is. Then, after you determine the cover, you're looking at the channel, try to see how the fish can use that cover. If there's bait fish, because right away when you get there, you don't know if there's a big brim population, crappie, shad, whatever it is in your area, crawfish. So then when you find the cover, kind of see how the fish can use the cover, okay? And then, as I go and graph, I'm going to try to find the bait fish if there's a lot. And if there is bait fish, you'll find it right away, guys. But there are some lakes, even lakes I'm going to move to, where there are certain sections of the lakes that has less bait fish than others, okay? So if you do start graphing and do not see bait fish, that could be a sign that there is other, of course, forage opportunities for fish to feed on. Brim, once again, the crawfish, which is kind of hard for us to see, right? We don't get to, those aren't easy to see. So that can help you on your lure selection. But then, like, guys, for example, the gray, there's some areas of the gray I like. Last year when I was out there, I'd graph some areas and never see bait fish. Then I run up that river and it's everywhere, okay? So you have lakes probably just like that. I've seen in the comments, hey guys, I don't see bait fish, what do I do? So guys, just kind of think that in mind. If you don't see bait fish, then there's something else they can be feeding on. So hopefully, guys, that helps on determining new areas. When you get to a new area, what do you look for, okay, with the Google Earth study and the Navionics when you get there? Because remember, guys, cover and then your forage and then bass. You might see the bass in the cover, or you might see the bait fish in the cover. Try to find 2 of the 3, okay? And it could just be cover. Guys, it's hard to see fish in the cover sometimes. So if you see the cover, you can fish it. Me, I don't like to fish super long. Like, I'm going to try to fish these pieces of cover fast. Okay, guys, so hopefully this helps. Hopefully I didn't jump around too much. The 50, 30, 20 method, and I'm sharing this with you to help you go out to be a better angler, have a plan of action. What's your guys' plans of action? Is it, how much time you use using your seat time fishing? Do you even use electronics? What's your plan of action when you go to a lake? Fishing history, fishing new water. What do you guys do? Okay? Appreciate you guys once again. Thank you for watching, and hey, we'll see you on the next one.